Hey, welcome back to Charlie Brown Politics. I'm Charlie Brown, the host of the show. Yes, let's continue talking about Israel and Palestine. There is a story that relates to this issue that has caught my attention, and it is a story about a professor of corporate law at Berkeley University that has asked people within his field not to hire certain students of his. Why? Because these certain students have been protesting in solidarity with Palestine. So I wanted to expose this guy. I wanted to show you guys what I found when I dug a little bit of information on him. But before that, let's suffer through a Fox interview with this guy, and it's going to get us up to date about this story.
Well, college campuses, meanwhile, erupting with anti-Israel protest, especially after that attack on a hospital in Gaza, despite U.S. intel saying Israel was not behind it. My next guest is warning law firms, don't hire some of my law students in the wake of these Israeli protests. He writes, if a student endorses hatred, it isn't only your right, but your duty not to hire him. Do you want your clients represented by someone who condones these monstrous crimes? UC Berkeley law professor Stephen Davidoff-Solomon joins me now. Professor, good to see you. I'm just curious, how many of your students, or maybe put it in percentage terms, what percent of your students actually blame Israel for the Hamas massacre of October 7th?
It's a small number, but they're extremely vocal and they're extremely loud and repeatedly claim that Hamas is a legitimate organization and that the murder of innocents, the rape of innocents and children, beheading babies is okay because this is all in the name.
All right, so that's the first red flag that should be jumping out to you. This asshole is still promoting and using this propaganda of the beheaded baby story. I've gone over this. Other news outlets on the left have gone over this. The beheaded babies, the 40 beheaded babies, this has no evidence of it. No evidence has emerged and has proven this to be true. We were all suspect of it when the story first came out because it reminded us of the incubator babies. So that's the first red flag. Let's continue.
Of liberating Palestine.
Well, where do they get their information? And I'm wondering who at Berkeley has sort of guided them along with that viewpoint.
Oh, this is a longstanding problem at colleges, which is we admit students now based upon their fealty to social justice and a certain type of social justice. And then they get there and there are professors who teach them about settler colonialism and these, frankly, fictitious theories that dehumanize Jews, dehumanize Israelis. And frankly, these students have had no consequences for their actions. They're adults, but they're treated like children who are allowed to raid the candy whenever they want. And now it's time to hold them to account.
Now, we had a Stanford University instructor who actually picked out Jewish students, separated them from the rest of the class, told them to go in a corner separated from their goods to teach them what Zionist colonialism, their phrase, meant. Now, he was suspended, but is that sort of thing happening at Berkeley?
Well, a few things. One, that not even professor, just instructor, was a PhD student at Berkeley. And so where are you learning this, right? And I've seen this on my campus for far too long. That is not going on at Berkeley. For the most part, our professors are professionals, but they do, and there are statements by professors that endorse this killing, this murder. I have no problem if you support Palestinian rights. I have no problem if you criticize the Israeli government commensurate with other countries. But if you're condoning murder and rape and beheading babies, you should not be hired. It's time the adults stepped in.
All right, that's about all I can suffer through. Oh, man. Now, this guy, no, nobody needs to be happy about the violence that happened on October 7th. Absolutely. But if you're going to condone that violence, how about you condone the violence that Israel has been putting upon the Palestinian people since 1947? Okay. don't do I have to go through the history of it? Don't take my word for it. Go listen to Kim Iverson. Go read Max Blumenthal. All right. So that's the first thing I wanted to point out. Now, I wanted to also do a little bit of digging on this Stephen Solomon, this professor, on who he is and where his loyalties actually lie. So I have a few things that I want to show with everybody. Oops, sorry, wrong slide. Here we go. Now, I got this off of Berkeley University's website, and it's going to be a little bit on this asshole. Let's get into it. Professor Solomon is one of the nation's most well-known authorities on corporate law. His research focuses on intersection of law and finance with a particular focus on corporate law and governance, mergers and acquisitions, disclosure practices, procedures, and capital markets. He is the author of one of the leading casebooks on mergers and acquisitions. Of the 400 plus articles that are published each year by scholars in the field, 7 of his law-reviewed articles have been selected as being among the top 10 articles published in corporate law and security law in their respective years. So that's a little bit about this guy. Now, this is something else you might find interesting that I found. Okay, so here we go. Here's a picture of him. I know, ladies, he's a panty dropper. And you might notice that above his face there is Israel Institute. And you might also notice that this guy happens to be the chair of it. What is the Israel Institute? Good question. The mission of the Israel Institute is to enhance knowledge about modern Israel by ensuring university students in the United States and around the world have access to in-depth classes about Israel during their time on campus. The Israel Institute is a nonprofit organization that advances the academic study of modern Israel in partnership with leading universities around the world, which Executive Director Dr. Ariel Ian Roth currently leads the Israel Institute, which was founded in 2012 by former Tel Aviv University President Professor Itamar Rabinovich, with the generous support of Charles and Lynn Schusterman Family Philanthropies. Israel Institute programs provide opportunities for Israeli scholars to engage in academic exchange in the United States and all around the world, for American scholars to deepen their knowledge and develop new courses on Israel. All right, so that is something that I found about the Stephen Solomon, that he is on the chair of this Israel Institute. Now, this should hopefully be bringing up a couple questions that come to your mind. Questions like, is this guy really treating this issue with absolute fairness, without any biases? Then the answer should be no. Obviously, he's going to have a bias towards this subject. Now, also, isn't it just weird how we have somebody and a professor at a very major university that has such a strong tie to a foreign nation? Like, literally put any other nation in there and it's just weird and suspicious. Okay, I don't even care if it's like Great Britain. That would also be weird. But if you were to put like Russia, China, India, Brazil, you know how many people would be freaking out about that? So that's who this guy really is. These are where his loyalties really lie. It isn't to be with this fairness and about humanitarian reasons. And he's looking like, oh, if you can't call out the violence on October 7th, then you shouldn't be hired. How about you call out the fucking violence that has been inflicted upon these people since 1947 and even before that? Okay, you don't have a mumbling word about the genocide that is being put upon the Palestinian people. Now, like I said, don't take my word for it. Go read Max Blumenthal. Go listen to people like Kim Iverson. Okay, Israel controls their food, their water, their electricity. Now, I have one last video that I want to pull up, and it's got Kim Iverson in it. and she's just going to talk a little bit about the water situation.
Home, every building has a water tank on it. But the settlements, which there are 100 settlements, you see settlements everywhere. You drive along the roads in the West Bank and you see settlement after settlement after settlement, and you don't see any of these water tanks on these settlements. So the Palestinians have water tanks. Why is that? Well, because they only get running water 3 days a week. 3 days a week, they get running tap water. The other days a week, they have to rely on their reserve tanks. So when they have flowing tap water, they have to fill those tanks as much as they can because that's their only water source for the other 4 days a week. Meanwhile, the Israeli settlements, which are just right down the street, have fresh flowing water 24/7.
All right. So that was just a small clip on just one faction of the struggles that are put upon the Palestinian people, and there are so much more. And so I wanted to call out this Stephen Solomon, his hypocrisy, show everybody where his true loyalties lie, and of course just continue showing the struggle that the Palestinians have had to endure for so long. So with that, let's wrap it up, guys. Please let me know what you're thinking about this Stephen Solomon, or anything else that you're thinking. So like, comment, share, subscribe, and with that, I will catch you on the next episode of Charlie Brown Politics. Later.